Welcome back to Runway from the RAV, a Project Runway podcast. My name is Riley.
And I'm Maggie.
And today we'll be discussing Project Runway All-Stars Season 6, Episode 12, History in the Making. So this week, our 4 final designers got to go to the Smithsonian Institute of American History Museum in Washington, D.C. So this is our first trip of the season. And we also learned, because Alyssa Milano's waiting for them in the museum, and she says, this is your final challenge. And the 4 designers we have left are all wearing their sunglasses and their suits. They're all looking pretty fresh. And they're all like, oh my gosh, we're the final 4. Because it's basically the sister wives plus Stanley. And they've all been pretty close, I would say, most of the season. So that's kind of cool that they're all kind of like friends at the end. And it was also a bit of a shock to me that this was the final challenge, because I figured we'd have one more to eliminate the 4th. And then we'd go into the finale. But we'll get to that later in the episode, because we do eliminate someone. Mm-hmm. This was a longer episode, an hour. Most of them have been more like, 40 minutes-ish, but this one was a full length. And that's because there was a couple twists and turns along the way. Alyssa Milano really loves a good twist, as do the Project Runway producers. So Alyssa says that each designer will have to make a 6-piece collection to make their place in fashion history. So they get to make it's like a half collection, I would say, compared to the normal show. But a full 6-piece collection. They will have 1 week to do it back in the workroom in New York. And they will get $2,000 at the fabric warehouse where Mood shops, is how she put it. But it looks like it's just Mood's fabric warehouse, where they just pull certain ones to their retail store. But still, $2,000 is quite a bit. I don't know how to do the math of how much that is per 6 pieces, but it seems like quite a lot. And then the warehouse is kind of interesting because there's everything. You think Mood has fabric on fabric on fabric on notions on fabric. No, this warehouse was gigantic. It had like 20 feet tall racks just filled in row after row after row of different fabrics. And they picked some ugly stuff. And we had at least one neoprene. Why not? So they had some time to sketch in the museum. And they actually it looked like the museum was closed.
Yeah.
And that they got to walk around through, maybe not every single exhibit, but some pretty big exhibits. So they looked at like the first ladies and their fashion. They looked at some African-American fashion and history. They looked at some of the military garb and things like that. So it's kind of cool. I've been to Washington, D.C. I don't know if I went to the Smithsonian, I just don't remember because it was in like 8th grade. But I like that this season they have gone to they went to a museum, they've been to a planetarium, they went to now this really big museum. So I like that they're going places other than like a Red Robin or something. And if you're going to have a sponsor, the Smithsonian is pretty legit. Mm-hmm. And I really like that idea of making your mark in fashion. What did you think of the challenge?
Yeah, I thought it was pretty cool. I liked too, it was nicer having the longer episode because you got more footage of them exploring and just doing all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I feel like we had a long time in the museum, which was nice. And they were all were actually taking it in. So they were sketching, so they'd walk around either, in pairs or all together, and then one would stop and sketch and the rest would move on. But they were all they saw this bow and headpiece that Harriet Tubman wore, and you could just see that some of the designers were in awe of that history, and especially considering that they're all African-American men. Obviously the history in America can be a little dicey, but to know that now in modern times it's a lot easier to make it regardless of race or gender, or you're not guaranteed, you gotta work, it's hard, it's not easy, but at least it's possible. Whereas you can look back through American history and even sometimes in modern era where it's geez, what are we doing? So then they go to the roof and they do their model casting, which is basically, I think, all of the models from the season. Most of them looked familiar. I don't think I saw any new faces, but and then they kind of just went. So Ken went first because he won last week. So he got to go first, and then they just kind of went in order, each picking a model. And then they flew back to New York City. They went to the Big Mood warehouse where they were picking out fabrics and things. Not a lot of mood moments. They were all just kind of overwhelmed. They had longer there. They had an hour. And they each had, like, an assistant who worked for Mood, who, like, took them where they wanted to go. Like, Anthony was like, I want silks and wools. And they're like, okay, you know, here we go. And then Fabio wanted some prints. And were there any real big Mood moments there for you?
No, there's no warehouse dog.
No Swatch, yeah.
None of that, but I did think that was pretty cool, though, because I don't think we've ever seen the warehouse on the show, have we?
Not that I can remember.
And that was cool to see, like, how huge it was. Like, they have a gigantic selection.
Yeah, well, and I guess I never thought about the fact that they'd have to have a storage area for the fabric that, you know, is either out of style or whatever, but fashion always comes back around. Or just, like, excess fabric and stuff. I guess I never really thought about it before, that it would also be somewhat of a storefront. Maybe it isn't really, and they just had people there who, like, are, like, normally do the stocking and stuff. We're just like, yeah, I can help you out. So then we should get to the workroom?
Yeah.
So, like I said, they're back at their normal workroom in New York, which took me a split second. Because they were in Washington, D.C., and then you get, like, this airplane transition. Well, someone's talking about them traveling. So I'm like... And then they go to the Mood warehouse. I'm like, wait, are we back in New York or whatever? I didn't know we were back in New York till they walked into the workroom, because I'm really quick. You know, I'm quick. I'm quick with the hits here from Project Runway. So on day one, it looked like they had about 10 to 12 hours per day, which is actually seems like somewhat less than they could get. Like, I don't know, it seems like they could work a little longer, but maybe they wanted to be more well rested, I'm not sure. But so on day one, most of them are working on patterning. So Ken in particular, he's like, I got all my patterns done. Fabio wanted to work with muslin, and he wanted to do a technique called smocking, which I've never heard of before. But he said that his grandma taught him how to sew, which is a common story in Project Runway. So thank you, all of you grandmas out there, teaching all these people how to sew, and encouraging that, like, creative outlet for them. Grandmas. I love them. So he wanted to do that smocking technique, and he started it with muslin. And then I know Anthony was working a little bit with patterning, and as was Stanley. So they were all like, okay, this will be great, and then I'll cut my fabric tomorrow, but this way I can take time to, like, get my measurements and everything. And day one was pretty chill. Do you have any day one moments?
Not really, no.
They're all very cordial with each other, and they get along, so they're kind of like going over and be like, how you doing? What's going on? On day two, that morning, Fabio opens the door to walk in and is, like, stunned and, like, falls backwards, and everybody else and little Ken's like, what the heck's going on? And Alyssa Milano is standing there in the workroom, which is rare. And, of course, she has a twist for us. Our first twist of the episode, not our last.
Yeah.
And she says that they'll have a presentation the next day, and that they will have to show their signature look for their collection. So one that encompasses, like, their entire story, and only 3 will then go on to create their full collection. So the designers are shocked, because they really thought it was going to be all 4 of them, and they all like each other, so they all think that each other are good designers and are strong. So they were really hopeful that all 4 of them would at least get to go to make their final collections. But unfortunately, it will only be 3. And now they have to make their signature look in one day. And most of the designers, as we said, were making patterns, working in muslin, so they don't have really, most of them didn't have any actual look made yet. So they have their sketches and everything, but it's just like, oh my gosh. So originally they had 1 week to make this 6-piece collection. Now they have 1 day to make their signature look, and all the designers were saying that, like, I would have made my signature look last. You know, I'd make the other ones and then know that the signature piece is going to take longer, or might change based off some of the other smaller pieces that you might want to involve, like a technique or a color in. So they're like, now we got to make it first, and we got 10 hours to do it. So day 2, they had 10 hours, and then obviously they have like an hour or so in the morning when they're also sending their model off for hair and makeup. And then also the extra pressure that one of them's going to go home. So they thought they were all going to get to make this collection. They all already spent their $2,000 in Mood, and now... one of them has to go home. So, Anne comes in after they've all been working for a couple hours. Anne comes in for her critique, and her critiques were better this week, I think, than they had been. You know, she was saying, like, think of your collection, but also realize that, like, if you don't impress them and they don't want to see the rest of your collection, then this time you're out. You don't even get to make the rest. So forget your collection for now, other than that this needs to encapsulate it all. And then she reiterated to all of them, like, this is your last chance to kind of make an impression. So I thought the Anne critiques were better this time. She was more positive to Fabio. She's always been negative to Fabio, and this was the first time she's like, I want to see the rest of the collection. He was like gobsmacked. He's like, what? For me? He's like even telling his model later. He's like, Anne liked it. Like, pretty funny. Any Anne moments for you?
No. Honestly, I don't really even pay attention super closely to the Anne critiques anymore.
Yeah.
Because they're very Anne. I don't know. And at this moment, I was like, you can't be super shocked that they did this, but I found it a little bit disappointing. Like, that was, I don't know, to get their hopes up and, like, make them all feel that, like, sense of security, which, like, obviously, yeah, it's a show. You know they're gonna do something like this. And it's always been, like, top 3. They've made exceptions, of course, but the rule has always been top 3, so it shouldn't have been, like, a total blindside, but still, I was just like, really?
Yeah. Well, and it was cool to see that male bonding, even in a competition, that they were all still really close, still kind of helping each other out, at least with, being, like, several people were, like, asking each other how they were doing, which is not a question you ask, like, and expect a real answer from people you don't care about. It's one thing to see, like, random coworker A or, like, random person from school to be like, hey, how's it going? Good, but to actually be like, how are you feeling right now in this stressful moment? It's like, that's bonding, it's friendship. So it was nice to see that, and then to know that now they have to compete against each other before they compete against each other. It's kind of like, ugh.
Yeah.
So then on day 3 was their presentation, so they had like an hour or 2 in the morning to do some final touch-ups. I know Ken was struggling a bit with his look because he wanted to do these. He was really inspired by like the, I don't want to say old-timey, but the old-timey fashions. So he had like this big puffy sleeve, but then he also needed this drama moment. He decided to work with pants, and he was trying to decide like, do I want to train or do I want these sleeve things? And kind of struggling with that. Anthony was struggling a little bit with the fabric he chose. It was this like velvet-faced neoprene, and he's a bit of a draper, so he didn't like, it didn't break his design like neoprene has other times in this season, including last episode, but it was a little bit like he had to work around it a bit. And then Stanley always is just timing, like he wanted to have like 80 layers into his skirt, and he wanted to do gloves, and he wanted to maybe do like a hat or something, and Anne was just like, no gloves, like don't do that. Rethink the gloves, which was, I think, good advice. So then they send their folks off to get their hair and makeup done. The Rodial person was a different woman this week than we had last week, but still, it's nice to see, like we mentioned last week, it's nice to see, because the hair and makeup people, as far as I can remember, are almost always male.
Yeah.
Like the ones they talk to, like the spokesperson. So it was nice to see a woman, and it was a different woman than last week, which is also nice. Any final workroom hair makeup moments?
No. I don't know. It's pretty standard.
Yeah, I mean, we got more of it, but there wasn't anything really big. Like, they were all really stressed. Like, the first day they were all, like, super fine. Like, the workroom seemed like this really, like, kind of, I'd hate to say it, but like a working synergy between them all. And then on day 2, it was just like stress and panic, and like Anne walks in, she's like, I can tell you're all like stressed out, calm down. But it's, it drastically changed the mood. And then on day 3, they're just rushing around to show their stuff at, on the runway. So let's get to the runway then. We've got a lot to cover, so that's why we're kind of blasting through this early part, because
yeah. Well, they started us out making us feel like, oh, look, we got all this time. Can explore the museum at a leisurely pace. Oh, we can hang out in the workroom, get some process. And then it's just like, bam! No.
Time's up.
We're going to twist it. And
Yeah.
like,
That's reality TV, man. That's how they get you.
yeah.
But, yeah, and I also was like, wait, is this the finale? Because, they were, like, blasting. They're like, day 1, day 2. I'm like, oh, my gosh, is this going to be, like, the finale? We're done? Like, this is the final episode? No.
Yeah.
We'll get to what tacked on a good 20, almost 30 minutes of screen time. So our guest judges this week were Dita Von Teese, who has been a guest judge before, and then Zana Roberts-Rossi, who used to be the All-Stars mentor. So she was the Anne for a couple seasons. I don't know if she's been a guest judge that I can remember, but it's likely. But she's familiar then with at least Ken, I think, and Anthony's work.
Yeah.
Ken for sure, she was the mentor on his season and like mentioned several times about how he's developed over, because it's like his third technical season or like appearance on the show. Because he was an all-star vet. Because if you remember way back in episode 1, we had the vets and the rookies. So, now, first up down the runway, we had Stanley, and he made basically a little white dress. It's sleeveless. It has a big black kind of Peter Pan collar on it, I believe made out of leather. And then attached to that is like this white bib of leather with a black stripe down the middle. The dress is belted with a little black belt. And then the skirt kind of floofs out a bit to the mid-calf, lower calf, I'd say. And then underneath there, you can see it's multiple layers of like, I don't know how to, it's not a petticoat. But there's multiple layers under there, and some are white, some are cream, and then one at least is black. And then he's paired this with leather Oxford flats. And then he made a little like frilly headband that's got like the mesh kind of, I don't know, like old-timey people wore to funerals, or people like Dita Von Teese wear to judge shows where it like obscures your vision. It just makes sense. You're gonna judge clothing, just obscure your vision with sequins. What did we think of Stanley's?
I actually did like this quite a bit. I was surprised by Stanley this week. I thought I liked the leather details, but especially like in the collar, some of it did read like a little bit heavy to me. And one thing that I also didn't care for, I didn't like the bottom of the skirt. Like it looked like unfinished, and like it was just like cut up, and I don't remember the judges mentioning that at all, did they?
They did not. They
were like, oh, we love like the bits of black under there. But yeah, I don't remember them saying anything about like the super unfinished hem. To me, it just looked unfinished. It looked like a mistake, or like he ran out of time, or I don't know. And he had like really clean lines everywhere else in the dress, so to me that didn't go at all. But as a complete look, though, I did like it. What do you think?
Yeah, once they zoomed in on the hem of this to show that little black piece, to me it looks like a mistake. Now, granted, I'm not a dress expert, but to me it looks like it's wrong to see that little bit of black. It seems unintentional, whereas if he'd made it trimmed or something. And then the fact that the bottom of this dress, or at least the top layer, wasn't hemmed, and he's talking about tailoring.
Yeah.
And all the judges were like, oh, tailoring is so good. But he didn't even hem it. It looked terrible. It was crookedly cut with threads hanging down. No. And then the top of this looks like a bib to me. It looks like a leather bib that you would tuck into a tuxedo.
Yeah.
And then the white dress is so boring. It's nothing. Without that collar and the bib, this is a white dress that you could buy anywhere. I don't get it. I don't get Stanley a lot of the time. He makes fine things sometimes, but I don't get the hype on him this season. The judges love it, and to me this looks so you take the collar off, rip that bib thing off, please. Then you have a boring white dress.
Yeah.
With a choppy hem. I don't get it. Next. There wasn't really top or bottom. We got critiques from all the judges, and all season long, I can't tell if they like it or they don't.
Yeah.
Because they give positive and negative reviews. They disagree with each other. So there's no top or bottom this time. And we'll have another twist to get to, and then we'll get into who stays and who goes. But yeah, it was just they all got critiqued, positive and negative, and then they all just stood there, and then whatever. Next up we had Ken, and he made separates with pants, which I think is a bold move for your signature look. But if there was someone whose signature look was a strong pant or jumpsuit, it would be Ken. power suit for a power woman is like his like mantra, I feel.
Yeah.
So he put down, it's this brocade top, sleeveless, strapless, and it's like this gold and white brocade, zips up the back, and then he paired it with these white kind of satiny pants. I'm not sure of the fabric. They cut off at like the lower calf area. He paired them with sky high gold strappy stiletto heels, and then over top of the brocade top, he took this like really light blue kind of like organza or something, and he kind of put it up on her like a sash over one shoulder, and then draped it around the front, tucked it around the back, and then it's just there in like a tiny capelet. What did we think of Ken's?
To me, this one, it was just okay. I don't care for it too much. Like, I agree, I like that he did pants, and I agree that, like, that totally fit him. Like, I thought that was a great idea. But the pants themselves, I don't really like all that much. To me, they look, I don't know, a little, like, to me, they date her a little bit. Just the cut of it is just, I don't know, maybe it's probably just personal preference. They just remind me of like old lady pants or like work pants, which I'm just like, nah. And then to me, the cape sash thing just makes no sense. Like, what's it for? Just to have, I don't know. I guess what is fashion? What are things for?
True. What is fashion?
What is life? What is fashion? So, yeah, to sum it up, it was just okay. Not my favorite, though. What do you think?
I don't like the sash thing. His original idea was to add a train made of that same brocade fabric. I think that would have been really strong. But this season, we've already seen several jumpsuits or pants with a train. So I don't think on this season it would have had the same drama. He also originally had puffy brocade sleeves on this. I'm really glad he got rid of those. Those would not have helped. Yeah. But with this, if you take off this flimsy sash thing, then yeah, she's got like ill-fitting, high-waisted trousers and like a brocade corset. What even is that, Ken? Like, I think if this was in different colors, it would have been much stronger. Like, I think if those pants were in black or, like, a really bold, punchy color, like he did last week, where he used that really kind of, like, chartreusey yellow, if these were, like, red or blue or black or anything, I think it would have pushed it a lot more. Heck, even if they were gold. But it seems like a really odd materiality choice. And then that blue sash thing is just terrible. It doesn't add drama, it just adds like a gigantic question mark where I'm just like,
yeah.
And it's a taste issue, not in terms of like skin showing, but just in like, what is that? Next up we had Fabio, and he also did separates, but he did like kind of a play on a t-shirt and then a skirt. So the top here is like this cream colored, looks kind of satiny, top with kind of loose T sleeves, and then the front of the shirt in like a big like dome shape is like this bird fabric. It's got birds and sticks on it, branches I should say, not sticks, branches and little birds on it. The back of the shirt has a bit of a lip that comes down like over, so slightly asymmetrical. And then the skirt is this blue and white striped fabric, vertical stripes, that he did this smocking technique to. All I can describe this as is kind of like a honeycomb pattern. I'm not super familiar with smocking, and I apologize, but basically the top, 8 or so inches of this kind of have this like honeycomb pattern that he sewed into it, and then the skirt kind of falls away in an A-line to just at the knee, and then he paired these with some flats as well. They're like these little black pleather like tennis shoes. And he styled the makeup quite interestingly here, where she has one black eyebrow and one teal eyebrow, and then blue eyeshadow from the lash to the brow. And I will say, while I think it's an ugly makeup look, I can see the makeup on the runway. Thank you, Rodial.
Yeah.
What did we think of Fabio's?
This one, my fashion is not advanced enough. I did not get it. I was like, I don't know, it just seems so random. Like, I don't know what really drew him to this bird fabric on the shirt. Like, it's just like a weird bird shirt. I don't know, it was okay. It's just a weird bird shirt. And then the skirt, like, I don't know, I just thought this was just such a bizarre look. And then the makeup was just crazy. Like, why, Fabio? What did you think?
This is not the first time someone's chosen this weird bird fabric, and it just reads so junior to me. Like, it doesn't seem super sophisticated. It reminds me of a wallpaper, which I think is what Dita Von Teese mentioned as well. And then it has this kind of silky... I like the rest of the top. I think it's kind of this cool modern play on like a t-shirt. I really like that the back is slightly longer, and the materiality of that I think is cool, with the little cutout at the neck. It's got these tiny little V-cut. But then, yeah, that front panel being this weird bird fabric is just, why would you do that? The makeup, ugly. I love it being paired with flats, like with these little shoes. I love the idea that, like, fashion doesn't have to be stiletto heels. And please don't let it be peep toe denim lace-up booties. And the skirt here just makes her look about 3 times wider than she is, in a really weird, kind of unflattering place, like right over the front of her hips. Like, that's, if you want a little extra volume, you want some extra junk in your trunk. You don't want it in the front. Like, it just looks kind of weird. It looks like those, like, stretchy shirts that were popular for, like, 10 minutes in, like, the, like, early 2000s. And it's this tiny little, like, t-shirt that's, like, almost tie-dye, but then it becomes a real shirt stretched over you, but it's such an odd texture. That's what it looks like to me. And then, yeah, it's just, the skirt otherwise is fine. I think the fabric, the textile choice there is fine, but the top is just, of the skirt, I don't get it. Next up we had Anthony, and of course he made a gown. And he made this out of blue, like a bright, vibrant, royal blue, I would say. It's backless, and then the front comes up at a straight line, like right over the top of her, like, clavicle, and then it's got some little straps over the back that just kind of go right under the arm. And then the front is kind of form-fitted to about the lower calf, so it's kind of form-fitting, but in the back, it's like an asymmetrical kind of train. And there was a train. It drug behind her, but in a very elegant way. And then he styled this with, like, a slicked back kind of updo and some black strappy heels. What did we think of Anthony's?
Well, this is always the joke, but I honestly do love the blue. I love it. I don't know. I like royal blue. It's my color. But the dress itself, I also really like. I do kind of agree. I think it was Georgina that said she felt like the fabric was very heavy. And I agree with that. I think it does read kind of heavy, but I don't necessarily dislike it. I like it. I don't know. I'll just leave it at that. I do like it. I like the shape he made, and then I do like the train too. I thought it was like kind of a cool, more dramatic gown. And that blue. Wow. What'd you think?
I like this too, and it's a really rich blue, and it looks great on the model skin tone. I think this would look good on anybody. That depth of blue, I think, would look good on just about anybody. It is a pretty gown, but it doesn't seem super unique to me. Yeah. I feel like I've seen this look before, so if it's your signature look of what you'll go down in history doing in terms of fashion, it's not super unique. Some of the others were like, also, like Stanley's, no, not super unique, no, not museum worthy. And this one's gorgeous, but it just doesn't feel very unique or fresh to me, I guess. So the 4 of them are standing there. Alyssa Milano sends the models away and says, we're going to talk to all of you, which is also rare. And instead of saying like the top or bottom or anything, she says, so you've all done a really good job, and now I want to take you somewhere. So she gets up on the runway. She takes Anthony's hand because he's on like nearest the end of the runway, near the end of the battle axe. And she takes his hand and they start walking through like the backstage area. We have no idea what's going on. The designers have no idea. None of the judges are coming. It's just Alyssa Milano. she's like walking through. They go into like the control room where all the people are like watching the monitors and everything. And she's like, "Hi, this is Steve. This is Bob. This is Amanda. Yeah, we're all fine here. Okay, here we go." And it's just like, what is happening? And her attitude is very weird about it. And then we're like going back like past the sound stage and everything. We're into like the back end area. There's some guy pushing like a rolling dumpster cart of something. She's like, "Hi, Larry." And it's just like, what's happening? And the designers are like, I don't know. Like, Anthony's like holding her hand. He's like, "She's got such a little hand and I feel like I'm crushing it." And then they end up in this area in the back where they've got sewing machines and steamers and these trash cans filled with fabric. And she says that the designers will have 1 hour to create a new look that doesn't have to be part of their collection, with the discarded fabric of eliminated designers. So that's what's in the trash can, is scraps of fabric from previous designers' looks from the whole season, and that they will have 1 hour to make a complete look. Here you go. Mm-hmm. So the designers like dump out the trash cans and start digging through it. So everybody's like, so Ken is immediately going for like the black materials. Fabio gets some white kind of things. Anthony pulls out that teal that Joshua used several episodes ago. It's like this teal silk, and there's a lot of it. He's got a ton of it. He's like, "Oh, thank you, Joshua." Yeah. And then Stanley's just grabbing all of like the sequins and like glittery stuff. He's like, "I'm just going to get anything shiny and glittery I can." And he's just like snatching it up. So we had a lot of interesting decisions in terms of fabric. But obviously you don't have a ton of choices, because oftentimes, because of the restricted budgets on this show, you got like $150, $200 to get stuff. You're not going to get a lot of extra yardage. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people this season have kind of screwed themselves over buying the wrong material, and they don't have anything else to make it with. And then also we got a couple of rubber balls bounce out of the trash can. Like, anybody's going to be like, "Yeah, I've got an hour. Might as well go unconventional and use the balls." Like, needless to say, no one did that. But that was pretty funny, because I'd almost forgotten all about that episode. And it's like a couple like bouncy balls go rolling out. I'm like, yeah, who's going to be like, "I know. I'll use this." So we basically spent about a good 15 minutes of the episode time, I would say, watching them all like frantically work on things. They didn't have a dress form. Their model, I didn't like it. I know the model treatment on this show sometimes, like last season we had like the model mirror and we got some of their insights. I know we were kind of torn on if we liked it or not, or sometimes it's kind of cool to hear their ideas, but it's also unnecessary, like you're a model. But this time they walk in and all of their models are just standing in this like bare warehouse with 4 sewing machines in a bra and panties, and that was it. Yeah. And the room is filled with like people, men and women, with like boom mics and cameras, and the designers walk in with Alyssa Milano. And I know that as models, you know, sometimes you're going to have to model things in the nude. You're going to have to model things where you're wearing undergarments or you're not. You're going to wear weird things. But for them to just be standing there literally like equipment, like they're basically the dress form, and they don't even get to wear like, even if they immediately have to take it off, like a tank top and jeans, I didn't like it. Yeah. To me, it seemed a little objectifying and a little like they weren't people to me. And you could tell some of them were uncomfortable, because in the back of the shot, they're like, their arms were crossed over themselves, or they're like hunched over. And it's just like, they're all beautiful. They all have great bodies, but not everyone necessarily feels secure. Like, there's plenty of point. Yeah, like there's plenty of people who have insecure. And it's just, to me, I'm just like, I didn't like it. I didn't like that part. And then another twist. What did you think of the twist? Let's do that.
I thought it was pretty stupid. Like, it just seemed really unnecessary. Mm-hmm. Like, especially later when we get to the actual judging. Like, yeah, we can address it then, I guess.
Well, and normally when we have this, like, 1 hour face-off, it's between the 2 people at the bottom to see who goes home.
It's not everybody.
But this time it was everybody, and they didn't even discuss, and like we said, I couldn't even tell who was in the top or bottom. Like, everybody had negative things said. And I don't think anybody put down necessarily their best work this week. So it was kind of like they were all just fighting for scraps, but it didn't make sense. I'm never a huge fan of the hour twist challenges. We had them in previous seasons, but to have all 4 designers, I was just like, what the heck is this? Mm-hmm. And that the way she made it sound was that instead of their collection looks for the finale, they'd be judging these. Now, we learned later in the actual judging that most of the judges completely disregarded these hour looks. But Alyssa Milano made it seem to these designers like, you're going to get judged on this hour look and that's it. and that's who wins and goes home. And that's not fair. Like,
Yeah.
Obviously, if you're a good designer, you should be able to make something in an hour. But to expect, like, that this is the next step between you and the finale is 1 hour look with fabrics that someone else bought. And as Anthony said, like, they probably went home because they bought ugly stuff. And now we're literally diving through the trash. Anyway.
Yeah.
So they're frantically sewing things, making things work. We'll just get to the second runway because it was just such a weird moment on the show. And it took quite a bit of time, for sure. So then and I don't have individual pictures of these because they're not on Lifetime's website, which is where I get, like, the pictures of the final looks. So I can only tell you what the fronts look like. Because I honestly, even though I watched the show, like, an hour ago, I don't remember. So first up we had Anthony. So, and they didn't walk the runway.
No,
so,
they didn't. It was pointless.
Yeah, so the designers and the models just stood in the same order they had been. They're just, now the models are wearing something different. But they started with Anthony and his, like, because I think when you have an hour, you kind of rely on, like, your signature technique. So he kind of went back to draping. He had a ton of this extra teal silk fabric from Joshua. So he made a full-on gown. It's off the shoulder on one side, has a sleeve. It's ruched and kind of draped interestingly over her midsection, goes down to the floor, and then has a long asymmetrical train on one side. And then he used a bit of the same magenta fabric Joshua did to add a little detail to, like, it's basically the one sleeve is what became, like, the train. So it's like this over-exaggerated, and it has some pink definition. What did we think of Anthony's?
This one, I hated the fabric choice. I understand that it was just because there was so much of it.
Yeah.
Like, that's why he chose it. But, God. That one. Oh, Joshua. But I guess, was this the Isaac Mizrahi challenge? Yeah. The color one where he had to do the teal?
He had to do the teal.
Okay. That's what I thought. I just want to make sure. So, okay. Yeah. I need to stop talking about it. To me, the dress, it was just okay. It wasn't, like, super impressive. It was great for an hour.
Yeah.
But, I don't know. I wish he would have just left out the purple. I didn't feel like he needed the purple. I think he should have just gone for a teal. But either way, like, it was just fine. Like, great for an hour. What'd you think?
Yeah, I think this was well done for an hour. I mean, it's basically just a draped thing he wrapped around, so it's not like it required a ton of sewing. Mm-hmm. I also think he should have left off the magenta. If you wanted an accent color, you should have picked up something that was, like, white or black to maybe kind of ground that teal color a bit. But as it is, I think it's fine. Mm-hmm. For an hour, whatever. Next up, we had Stanley, and he color blocked with sequins. Mm-hmm. So he used the copper sequins on the front. So this is like a little, I think it's a little dress, but it's like basically a mini skirt and then a top, no sleeves. So the skirt is copper sequins from Candace's look for, like, the pairings challenge. And the top has black leather, but then the little, like, cap sleeves are more of that copper. And then on the back, he used the silver sequins, I think, from Helen's look or something like that. Mm-hmm. Or Edmund's, whatever it is.
Something from Kimberly's. Did you already say that?
I don't know.
It was the Kimberly Betty Boop one.
Oh, that's where the silver came from.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just a lot of sequins. What did we think of it?
This one, I didn't hate. I actually kind of liked it. I thought that was kind of clever to mix all the different, like, metallic tones together. Like, I don't know. I thought that made kind of a cool dress. And again, this wasn't like, they all did good for only having an hour. Mm-hmm. Honestly, like, as a general statement, they were all really great for an hour. But this one, I think this one was probably my favorite of the hour looks. What'd you think?
I think this one's pretty youthful. I think it works okay. It's nothing super special. I think using the sequins was a risk, but I think it looks pretty good, at least from the front. I don't remember liking the back. With the copper and the silver touching, that's not really a color combo I prefer, but the copper and the black looks really sharp from the front. So since I don't have a picture of the back, I'll just say it was fine. Next up was Ken, and he used black fabrics from Joshua and, who was it? Candace from the, I don't know. I don't remember. Who cares? He used some black fabric from one of the challenges, and he made this little V-neck halter dress with a really big slit up one leg. What did we think of Ken's?
This was another one that it was fine. I'd rank this like right alongside Anthony's. Like, it's a nice dress, but there was nothing like super special about it to me. What do you think?
Yeah, he kind of tried to go for the drama with like the big leg slit, and that's kind of something Ken plays with, but it just doesn't look. Again, it's kind of like Anthony's. It's like, I mean, it's impressive you made it in an hour, and it looks well finished from here, but it also doesn't look very special.
Yeah.
And then last we had Fabio, and he kind of played with sculpting and proportion, which is kind of what he does. And he ended up making this asymmetrical top. It's off one shoulder, and then the bottom of it is like also asymmetrical, but heavily sculpted. It's got some like waves and bends to it, and then he paired it with like these like linen little shorts, wide leg shorts that go to the knee. What did we think of Fabio's?
I did not really care for this one. It was very Fabio. I'm glad that, like, I thought that was pretty ambitious that he tried, like, separates. So I did like that aspect, but to me, like, the shorts were, like, they're kind of, like, awkwardly long. And, like, since they're so wide, I don't know. I just felt like the length was wrong. I think Isaac mentioned that, too. Love to see a knee or something.
Yeah, Isaac really
like
likes to see the knee. Yeah.
That kind of cracked me up. But I suppose I do agree here. I think they would have worked better if they were either shorter or maybe if they went all the way to the floor as pants. But I don't know. This one, to me, was the most ambitious and the most unique out of all four. But I don't know. It needed more time. What do you think?
I like the top of this a lot, actually. I think doing that kind of artful sculpt in the front is, for an hour, doesn't seem possible. But the shorts are terrible and really detract from it. I think if they were in a different color, which granted you don't necessarily have the option of, but there was a lot of colors in those buckets for people to use like 3 things. And then, yeah, the length, the proportion of the short is terrible. So I wish he had done something else instead, but I really like the top. And maybe if he'd had enough fabric, he could have made that like a super short dress, and I think I would have been fine with that. Then we also learned, before they eliminated anybody, that because they've already made a look for their collection, now it will be a 7-piece collection. So they still have to make 6 looks. So originally it was like, okay, well, you made one of the 6, so now you have 5 left after we determine who 3 goes on. No, now they still have to make 6 in 4 days, because now it's a 7-piece look, because one's already done. So that's our third twist of the episode, because adding another look, and they've already lost 2 of the days, 3 of the days. So it's just like, okay, cool, what else? Yeah. We're also going to have to do it while wearing like 100-pound weights on our back. We're going to have to do it with our left arm tied behind us. Like,
well, this is All Stars.
Yeah. If you can't sew a thing if you can't make a 7-piece collection in an hour, then you're not an All-Star. You think Zach Posen's made a 7-piece collection in an hour? No. Anyway, so the judges decide amongst themselves. Mostly, I think at first it was Isaac, and then everyone agreed. He's like, well, the 1-hour piece just basically tells you like what they're going to rely on in a stressful time. But he's like, but I'm going to mostly judge based off of the collection look. So then it was like, well, yeah, that's what I would hope.
Yeah.
But the show and Alyssa made it seem like they were going to judge based off this hour thing. So then what's the point of the hour-long challenge?
Yeah.
It didn't have one. No point.
Exactly.
Because to be honest, the person who goes home probably would have gone home regardless of this hour-long challenge. It didn't save or hurt anybody. So then why have it? There's no reason. It's just for the drama and to make the show longer so they can cram in more commercials. Not a fan. So first up, she says, in no particular order, here's who's going on to the finale. Number 1, Stanley. He's like, yeah, thanks. Number 2, Fabio. So that leaves us with Anthony and Ken standing there holding hands. Me going, oh God, oh God, oh God, oh God. I like both of these people. I would have said bye-bye Stanley, but this season has loved Stanley.
They have.
So they're standing there and they say, Anthony, you're going forward, which means Ken, you're going home. And Anthony starts crying like sobbing. You can like hear, and he hugs Ken and he's like, thank you so much for teaching me and being like a mentor, like a helpful mentor, not an and mentor. And Ken's like, absolutely, like you're gonna do great. And Ken's not crying at this point, but like Anthony is sobbing, and it just broke my little heart because they formed such a strong bond. Especially I feel Anthony and Ken, as well as like Fabio. And obviously I think anybody Anthony meets is like you're gonna be best friends because he seems like such a kind person. But so that was a very hard moment on the runway, and then Anthony leaves and Ken's standing there, and Alyssa Milano's like, well, I want my hug, and I hope you know that this is like, we believe in you and everything. And then Isaac and Georgina get up and also give him a hug, which is rare. It's we've seen it, but it's very rare, and that makes Ken cry because the judges are almost crying. Just being like, you're gonna do great things, it's, you know, this, it's just one challenge, like you're gonna do great. And Ken just like, I never cry, and he cried. So it was a tearful goodbye. I was shocked, to be honest, that it was Ken. I'm happy Anthony stays. I like him. But I think Ken has just continually made strong looks. Maybe not this week, but more so than I think Ken has. Or I'm sorry, Stanley has.
Yeah, I agree.
How do we feel about that elimination?
I mean, I agree. For me, it was between Ken and Stanley, but I feel like Stanley had a stronger week this week than Ken did. And I did not want to see Anthony go. I really want to see Anthony's finale collection, but yeah, that sucked. And it sucked that it came down to the two of them because they did seem like very close. So I was like, ugh. Not quite as like heart-wrenching as Claire and Sean because they're not actually related by blood, but you know, I don't know.
I guess that made it more heart-wrenching for me to show that friendship because they'd never met.
Yeah. Yep.
But that does mean Stanley is our only remaining All-Stars rookie. So Ken, Fabio, and Anthony were all considered veterans, which means they'd been on All-Stars before. So it is kind of cool, I guess, that Stanley, who came from a season where he was always on teams, that as an individual competitor, that he made it to the finale, and that he is a rookie, so he's never been on All-Stars before, is also quite cool. It's just sometimes the stuff he makes just seems kind of boring or dated, and I agree that his 1 hour look was stronger than Ken's 1 hour look. I don't agree that his collection look was stronger. I think they were both boring. But that means we say bye-bye to Ken. So I'll go through my quotes of the week, and then we'll get into the next week preview. So I don't have a ton of quotes, but I've got some. So first up we have Alyssa Milano in the museum saying, I've never seen Anthony speechless before. So once she said, this is your final challenge, everybody was like, we're it. And Anthony was just like he didn't speak. And yeah, I don't think we've seen him speechless either. Then we have Anthony talking about the idea for his collection. He said, if Audrey Hepburn had lived long enough to become Rihanna, which is not a thought I would ever have had. And to be honest, Audrey Hepburn, while she kind of faded from like the limelight, she lived until like the early 90s. Like I think she was in her 60s, so like she died young, but it's not like she died when she was 30, like when she was still acting. Like she became more of like a I can't think of the word, but she became more involved in like causes and things like that versus acting and things. So her and Rihanna, you know, overlapped timelines, but maybe not, obviously not Rihanna's like limelight time either. But it's basically taking like the classic look into the modern day look. And then Ken saying, if it makes you question if you like it or not, that's what fashion is all about. And that's what he was saying about his sash thing, which neither of us liked, and we literally did question if it was fashion or what fashion is. And I think for some designers, that's it. It's pushing the envelope. Yeah. You know, it's the Alexander McQueens of the world who are like, I'm going to distort the human form and obscure it to the part where it's almost monstrous. Not all of his collections do that, but some have. And it's like, is that fashion or is it like torture? You know, you don't know. And it's like, that's kind of what's interesting about fashion. Then we have Anthony on Fabio's look saying, she looks like Crisco in the can. fattening. Based off the skirt. And I think we agree. Like, I think it added quite a bit of volume, but I just like Anthony's little quotes. Then Anthony said, after the hour-long challenge, he said, I don't know where my mama is, but she better be damn proud of me for whipping out like a full-length gown in an hour. And then Ken, after being eliminated, said, I know my yes is coming. It's not today, but I know it's coming, which I think is encouraging. And then he also said in his parting words, in order to reach success, you have to go through steps of failure. It's part of the process, which is definitely true, particularly for the creative process. You know, you're going to go through some iterations where it's not quite right, and then you're going to succeed. And I think sometimes in life you have the same, it feels like you're taking 10 steps backwards, but when you finally take that step forward, it's right where you need to go. It doesn't always happen, and sometimes it can be a billion steps backwards, but I really like that from Ken. And I also really liked when he came back to the like waiting area. He was like, can I sit down? Like, he was like asking the producers, and he sat down and he basically went like one by one. He's like, you guys are all great. You're going to do great things. He's like, they made me cry out there. I'm not a crier. I'm not going to cry in here, but like, you're all really great designers and you're strong men who can do good things. And it's just like, Ken has come so far since his original season. Because I think on both of his previous season, he has stormed out at one point. He's had some like fluctuations with anger or other emotion. And I think it shows a lot of maturity in Ken to part on such good terms. Yeah. So then our next week preview, I've got 3 phrases for you. Helpers, Posin', Zeta Jones. So it looks like our guest judges for the finale will be Zach Posin and Catherine Zeta-Jones. And looks like they're going to get helpers in the workroom, and it's some of the women competitors that I was hoping to see in the finale. So at least we'll see them a bit. And it was Amanda, Helen, and Candace. So I don't quite know who had who because we just kind of saw them real quick. But I'm super excited to see Amanda and Candace again. And then by the end of the season, Helen had won me over a bit more after her dramatic. We'll see if how helpful she is. And who gets who. But I think those I'm super excited about Zach Posin again.
Yeah.
And then Catherine Zeta-Jones is just this like, I like that she's slightly older. I like that she's more established in Hollywood and things. And so I'm hoping that she'll have some better things to say than some of our judges this season. So that'll be I believe that'll be the last episode. But sometimes with finales, it's a 2-parter. So we'll see. But I don't think so for this time since it's only a week and they're not going home. So there's a high chance that next episode will be our last. But do you have any closing statements? Or do you want to try to make a prediction of who you think is going to win?
Yeah, let's make predictions.
Okay, go ahead.
Oh, God. I guess I need to think about this for a second. Because I'm just trying to think collectively at, like, the comments from this week, like, from the judges. For me, as, like, who I want to win, it's definitely between Anthony and Fabio.
Agreed.
I don't know. I would honestly love to see either of them win. But who I think will actually win? Shoot, I don't know. I kind of feel like Stanley. Stanley or Anthony. Stanley's like really been in the judge's pocket all season long. Which, so is Brandon.
True.
Project Runway, just the normal season.
True, so sometimes they can fake you out. But Brandon basically got the Aaron edit, and Aaron won. Like, she did pretty well. She had a little downtime there in the middle of the season, but then she came back and took it all. So it's hard to say. It's either like Stanley's a shoo-in or we're going to get surprised. I think if Anthony makes something that's like jaw-droppingly gorgeous or pushes the gowns a bit further, takes the fashion a bit higher, he could win. I think Stanley's will just be, tailored in a lot of different pieces and stuff. But if Fabio does more of that smocking, I don't think he's going to have a big win on his hands. But if he changes it up and relies more on like what he did at his hour challenge or how he dresses himself, which is what the judges have kept saying, he could surprise me. And have a really good collection. But yeah, I would hope for Fabio or Anthony, but I assume by the edit it's Stanley. So I'm willing to be surprised. And I hope I am, but
yeah. We'll see.
We'll see. So we will see you guys next week. That's it for us. You can find us on Instagram and Twitter at Rav Runway. We're also on iTunes and Apple Podcasts, Google Play, YouTube, Podiant, and most other podcast apps. Just search Runway from the Rav, and we'll see you next week.